Rodney Davis, your member of Congress. I'm here outside of the Capitol building to show you around today. The process of solving the nation's problems and unleashing the nation's possibilities unfolds here. The activity that goes on in this building is the center of America's experiment in political freedom. Let's go take a look inside. We are here at the Capitol Visitor Center. This is where you will start your tour when you're in Washington, D.C. Construction of the Capitol building began in 1793. Over time, the Capitol has been burned, reconstructed, expanded, and restored. General George Washington laid the cornerstone in the building's southeast corner on September 18, 1793. During the War of 1812, British troops set fire to the Capitol, destroying much of the interior. The first Capitol dome was completed by architect Charles Bulfinch in 1824 and stood 140 feet tall. In 1851, Congress began an extension, adding new wings to the north and the south. The South held a new wing for the House, while the Senate was placed in the north. Congress voted to replace the original dome with the current cast iron dome in 1855. This was designed by architect Thomas U. Walter as part of the Capitol extension. The Statue of Freedom was placed on top of the dome in 1863. Construction of the Rotunda was finally completed in 1866 when the apotheosis of Washington was finished. The site of debates on slavery, the election of John Quincy Adams in 1825, and territorial expansion. Statuary Hall was originally the Hall of the House and was first occupied in 1807. Legislative work in the House was brought to a virtual standstill in the late 1840s and 1850s as discussions on sectional issues, particularly whether slavery would be legal in newly admitted states, reached a halt. My favorite spot in the House is right here, Lincoln Square. Abraham Lincoln served a single term as a member of the Whig Party from 1847 to 1849. His desk, along with the desks of all former presidents who served as representatives, are marked with these bronze squares. I'm honored to have his seat in Congress and honored to represent him and you every day. Another marked square represents John Quincy Adams' desk. He is the only president to serve in the House of Representatives after his presidency. Adams, an abolitionist, fought for 8 years before defeating the gag rule, which prevented the House from debating anti-slavery petitions on the floor. As the nation grew and new states were added, the House transitioned into its current chamber. This space was then rebranded as Statuary Hall. In 1864, legislation was enacted that invited each state to contribute 2 statues to be displayed. The statues must be made of marble or bronze and depict deceased citizens, illustrious for their historic renown or for distinguished civic or military services. Currently, there are 36 statues displayed in Statuary Hall. As the collection has grown, statues have been relocated to the Crypt, Hall of Columns, Rotunda, and the Capitol Visitor Center. I'm proud of Illinois' 2 statues. Frances Willard, located in National Statuary Hall right behind me, and James Shields, located in the Hall of Columns. Frances Elizabeth Caroline Willard is remembered for her contributions to the temperance movement, women's higher education, and suffrage. She earned her college degree at Northwestern Female College in Evanston, Illinois. Frances became president of Evanston College for Women in 1871 and was the first woman college president to confer degrees. When Evanston College for Women merged with Northwestern University in 1873, Frances became the first dean of women. She was elected the second president of the National Women's Christian Temperance Union, where she expanded the scope of the organization's focus to include women's rights issues, such as suffrage. Willard is the first woman to be honored with a statue in the National Statuary Hall collection in 1905. Behind me is James Shields. He was born in Ireland and immigrated to New York City after breaking both his legs in a rigging accident, marking the end of a short but adventurous career as a sailor. He soon settled in Kaskaskia, the capital of the Illinois Territory, where he taught school and studied law. Shields served in state government starting in 1836 as a member of the Illinois House of Representatives, and then was a state auditor and a member of the Supreme Court of Illinois. Shields then served in the Mexican War and was injured in the Battle of Churubusco. He briefly served as the governor of the Oregon Territory before being elected to the U.S. Senate to represent the state of Illinois. He was there for one term. After being defeated for re-election, he moved to Minnesota, where he served as one of the first senators from that state. He also served as a brigadier general with the Union Army. After the war, he moved to Missouri, where he served in the state legislature and also later served in the U.S. Senate. He represented that state, becoming the only senator to have represented 3 different states. He died in 1879. This is the Rotunda. Above is the apotheosis of George Washington, painted by Costantino Brumidi. In 1865, he did this over a period of 11 months. It is suspended over 180 feet above the rotunda floor and covers 4,664 square feet. It depicts George Washington as if a god rising to the heavens, backdropped by a rainbow. 6 groups of figures on the ground below are seen at the perimeter of the canopy. They combine historical and mythological figures and represent war, science, marine, commerce, mechanics, and agriculture. Next to him are 2 female allegorical figures symbolizing liberty and authority and victory, fame. Circling them are 13 maidens, one for each of the original 13 states. Below that is a frieze of Americans' history, a panorama depicting significant events in American history, beginning with the arrival of Christopher Columbus up to the birth of aviation. Costantino Brumidi designed the frieze in 1859, but he didn't begin painting it until 1878. His original design ended with the discovery of gold in California. While painting William Penn in the scene, entitled William Penn and the Indians, Brumidi's chair slipped. He fell, but was able to catch the ladder and hung for 15 minutes until he was rescued. He quit the next day. After that, Filippo Costaghini completed the remaining 8 scenes based on Brumidi's designs. When Costaghini was finished, there was a gap. Years later, Congress commissioned Alan Cox to add the final 3 scenes depicting peace at the end of the Civil War, naval gun crew in the Spanish-American War, and the birth of aviation. On the west side of the rotunda, 4 paintings by John Trumbull, commissioned by Congress in 1817, depict seminal events in the nation's founding. On the east side, 4 scenes of early exploration by other artists were added between 1840 and 1855. People often ask me about the ceremonies held in the rotunda: Lion and Stave or Honor, Congressional Gold Medal, statue unveilings. These ceremonies happen in the very center of the rotunda. Government officials, including presidents, senators, representatives, and Supreme Court justices, have lain and stayed. This includes Presidents Lincoln, Kennedy, Eisenhower, Johnson, Reagan, and Ford. Rosa Parks, Reverend Billy Graham, 2 Capitol police officers who were killed defending our Capitol, and other important cultural figures who have shaped our nation's history in some way, have laid in honor. The Congressional Gold Medal, the highest award a civilian can receive, is presented in the rotunda. Some new state statues are also unveiled here. This section of the Capitol was completed in 1826. The crypt contains 40 Doric columns of brown sandstone surmounted by groined sandstone arches, which support the floor of the rotunda. Displayed around the room are 13 statues that are part of the National Statuary Hall collection. They represent the original 13 states. In addition, there's also, right behind me, a colossal bust of Lincoln by Gutzon Borglum. Lincoln is missing an ear on the left side of his face. The artist explained in a letter to a congressional committee that he omitted the ear because he wanted attention to be drawn to the stronger right side of the face. In the center of the crypt is the compass stone. This stone marks the center of the building and the point from which the streets in Washington are laid out in 4 quadrants. The streets in D.C., they run 3 ways: east-west, north-south, and diagonally. Lettered streets run east-west. Numbered streets run north-south. And diagonal streets, they have state names. I want to say thank you for taking the time to explore some of my favorite places in the Capitol today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to show you more when you can visit Washington, D.C. again. But now, I got to get back to work. It's truly an honor to serve you in Congress.